Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 3.42. Darnell.
That's the
There's a ghost
meaning
in
of the
my
universe.
house.
Ha ha ha. What? Why? Where? Who?
It's the ghost of the sponsors because they got fragged last episode.
What? Oh! For a second I thought you meant like YouTube sponsors. I was like, we have a sponsorship on Aetheral Space.
Sponsored by ghosts.
Yeah, all the sponsors are dead, huh? Except for War. What if Skipper, like, you know how Chael was all like, I'm the citizen? What if Skipper was like, hey buddy, I'm the sponsor of War?
And I am Iron Man.
Fifth Dead dudes be like, why do you know my predecessors? Don't tell me about that. Yeah, I still don't know what's up with that quirk. I'm interested. I memed about before, but is there, like, unironically a first, second, third, and fourth dead?
There are.
Or were there, rather?
There were.
Okay.
Yeah, but more accurately, there were.
Okay. It's funny because once they die, they stop being a dead, huh? Anyway. Last time on Aetheral Space, Chael, as I just joked about, revealed himself as the citizen. And he pretty much killed all the sponsors that were there, so only War is left alive. And then he was like, Skipper, we don't need to fight. We have similar goals. Let's work together. And Skipper was like, sorry, buddy, but I won't take any risks. My kids are in danger. And then they were fighting, and it was cool. And, oh yeah, Dragon, like, is realizing that the planet's being hacked because what's-his-fuck's gonna blow up the whole planet. It's just still so ridiculous to me. But yeah, the planet's gonna get blown up, so they gotta hurry! And, did I miss anything else, or is that it?
No,
oh yeah, Ruth is still sad.
Yeah, Ruth is. But she also has gotten out, and she's on the loose.
Yeah, so is Serena and Bruno.
The
Who knows
roof is
what they're
loose.
up to. The roof is loose. Let's raise the Ruth, am I right? Okay. Now that everyone has clicked off the video, I shall begin reading.
Now we have some privacy.
Noelle ran her... Noelle ran her hands over the console, tendrils of cyan aether working its way into the Dawn House's systems. She and her drones had cut into the hull of the ship from below as it soared above the city, and from there made their way to the engine room. She hadn't encountered as much resistance as she'd expected. Something else was distracting security, it seemed, and she'd seen more than a couple of corpses on her way here. Still, it wasn't her job to worry about things like that. Her job was to end this. It was a strange sensation, inhabiting a system like this. It was almost like forcing your hand into a sock puppet, but a puppet that warped your hand to suit its shape. Wait a minute. Sorry to interrupt. If he's going to destroy the whole planet, why does he need to delete all the data? Won't it all be gone when the planet blows up? Or is it the server hosted elsewhere?
The server hosted elsewhere, yeah. So that's... Basically, the servers have been wiped, but as a side effect of that, the stuff that was reaching from them has no longer got the assets.
Gotcha. She could feel the ship's systems in her own mind, her aether translating them into mental processes, as familiar to her as her own memories. Thrusters and steering, those were what she needed. Apart from her and the entourage of drones she'd brought along as defense, the engine room was empty. The massive hulk of machinery rumbled in the center of the chamber, the smoke and steam being pumped away in tubes to be expelled along the exterior of the ship. Noelle and the console she was using to access the systems were tiny by comparison. This engine was what was going to do it. Finally, Noelle would matter. The instructions she'd been given were very simple. Rewrite the ship's navigation, have it ram full speed into Top Town, shaving away the seats of power. That whole section of the city would fall down into the pit, dead rich and living poor being united at last. The problems of society were knots, and there was no better way to deal with knots than cutting them apart. It would have been so poetic if the ship was called, like, the Gordian or whatever. The Gordian.
Well, we don't have
The merest flick of her
We don't
wrist.
have that mythology in the Aetheral Space universe any longer.
Yeah, oh damn, they got rid of it in the Great Leap Forward. With the merest flick of
You're
her
not so
wrist.
far off the truth there, but let's get into it.
Oh, Nani! Supremacy, son!
No.
She could set the Dawn House on that path, turn it into the shining bullet that brought a new day. That's an anime line. Still, she hesitated. How many people would this kill? How many zeros? A flare of anger warmed her chest. Why was she worrying about pointless things like that? Hadn't she already decided? Her own words echoed, whispered by the very walls. I hate this city. I hate this planet. I hate this whole entire galaxy, really, now that I think about it. She'd said that, hadn't she? So why couldn't she follow through? Was she all talk? The walls were merciless. This whole world is trash, and so are all the people who live in it. Trash! Trash. There was no decision to be made. She'd already decided she was going to do this, hadn't she? That she would matter? Noelle flicked her wrist. Nothing happened. She blinked. What? That wasn't right. She was certain she'd gotten into the navigation systems. She plunged her Aether in deeper, inspected the electronic web more closely. Had she missed something? She had. There was already something else hijacking the systems. A virus surging through the systems and forcing them into a new shape. Systems twice. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. The virus's control over the navigation was rough and forceful, like someone bending a finger back. Oh, I hate that visual. Her brute force attacks weren't working against it either. It simply recreated whatever parts of it she managed to expunge. Why is it like a living thing? What the fuck? Hack
computers are wacky in the future.
Sci-fi virus. Biocomputing. The Dawn House wouldn't do as she wanted. It wouldn't hit top-down. Her heart dropped as she realized the Dawn House was going to hit something entirely different. Okay, said Dragon, swinging around in his chair to face Musashi. What do you know about Nendon gas? What can you tell me about the Reapers? Musashi furrowed his brow. What is Nendon gas? Shit. Dragon's explanation came out quick and uncertain, words spilling out of his mouth before he could put them into a presentable shape. Okay, it's a kind of fuel, I guess, to power starships. It's what Talden was built for, because this was originally a mining colony. The inside of the planet below us, it's full of Nendon gas. Jam-packed, you understand? Musashi nodded. It's abundant, yes. What of it? It's abundant, Dragon nodded back. Yes, it's abundant. You know what else it is? Volatile. Like, explosively volatile. The worst kind. That's why they need protective gear to mine it in its unrefined form. The slightest spark can set it off, and, well, it's really good fuel. It blows the fuck up! Musashi visibly paled. Good. He seemed to understand. So below us, inside the planet, it's basically a giant bomb. Now, I imagine the actual severity of what could happen if it goes up has been played down because these guys like money, and evacuation doesn't make good money. But our guy over there, he pointed at Raz's body, he found something out. Hence why they killed him. What is to be done? Mused Musashi, turning his pipe over in his hand. Wait, he has a pipe?
Yeah, no, they tore a pipe over the hole. He's been using it as
I thought like a smoking pipe.
No. Turns his joint over in his hands.
This is good kush. This bomb, how would they detonate it? I found out on the way here. The Dawn House, this huge ship, is flying above the city for a party. If you flew that right into the central mine shaft, I bet that'd be more than the spark you'd need. Oh, it's just like the Death Star. Musashi stood up, eyes firm. Then we must take that Dawn House. As expected, he'd provided Musashi with a heroic quest, and now he was eager to go. He might not have been as bombastic about it as Patel, but they truly were two of a kind. All they needed now was a way out of here. Be silent! Musashi suddenly hissed. He was staring at the exit, at the door he'd welded shut. Dragon opened his mouth to ask what was going on, but a sharp glance from the swordsman silenced him. There was a click from outside. Get down! Musashi roared, grabbing Dragon by the back of his collar and leaping backwards, pulling both of them behind the console. Rip fucking Patel. A second later, all hell broke loose.
He's out the back of the room.
The door burst inwards, the controls exploding on a shower of sparks and broken glass as they were overloaded. Smoke poured into the room from outside, and as Dragon staggered back up to his feet, he saw a huge hand pull the hole in the door open wider. A second hand came into view, holding a massive stun cannon, and then a face. Familiar eyes glared at Dragon. Hey, dear, Dragon said nervously, backing up a little as the security chief climbed into the room through the hole he'd blasted. Fancy seeing you here. As per usual, not a trace of humor infiltrated Deer's expression. There were only the slightest hints of disappointment and grim purpose. Adrian, he said, raising the cannon up. I thought you were smarter than this. Unlike Dragon, Musashi hadn't retreated in the least. Instead, he'd pointed his pipe towards Deer. Do not act rashly, he said quietly. You're outnumbered, and we know of your plans. The only part of Deer that moved were his eyes, glancing over at Musashi. My plans, he said slowly. There was the slightest sense of confusion in his tone. He didn't know what the sponsor of war was planning. That made sense. When Dragon had spoken with the sponsor of war, he'd gotten the sense that Deer was more of a useful pawn than an equal partner. Dragon suppressed a smirk. Someone who was being used was the easiest person to convince to take your side, especially when you knew what they were being used for. Excuse me. Deer, he said quietly, grabbing the security chief's attention once again. What is it you think is happening here? There was a moment's hesitation. Apprehending a terrorist. You've broken into a secure government installation, released an agent of a hostile government, and assassinated the warden. Okay, Dragon gulped. Strictly speaking, that's true, but you're missing a lot of context. Musashi glanced at Dragon over his shoulder. You assassinated someone? He said. There was an uncomfortably judgy tone to his speech. Yes, well, technically Patel did it. He jerked his head back towards the unconscious warrior slumped in his chair. But I sort of helped. If anything, Musashi's estimation of him seemed to drop even lower, judging by his gaze. You didn't even do it yourself, he muttered, turning back. That's what he cares about. You couldn't even do it. Deer looked around the ruined room, at the blank monitors, the smoke pouring out of the hallways, the chaps left behind by their escape. Chaps? I don't see what context there could be for this. The sponsor of war is planning to blow up the planet. The security chief's eyes widened, just fractionally, and his head snapped back to look at Dragon. That's ridiculous! It is, yeah, I know, Dragon replied, nodding frantically. Ridiculously true. Fuck off! Is he fucking a middle schooler? What is this? Ridiculously true. He's just me. It's possible. I just explained it to Musashi here. Musashi, explain it to him. What? I need to think of a way out of this. Dragon tried to communicate that message with just his eyes as he shot a glance at Musashi. He wasn't especially sure if the special officer quite got it, but he turned back to Deer all the same. You see, Musashi said, supremely confident, the entire planet is actually a massive bomb. The Dawn House is actually a bomb as well, and the sponsor of war has snuck aboard the ship, removed the captain, and intends to fly it inside a mine. Hence the destruction of the planet. Close enough. Dragon looked down at the stun cannon Deer had clutched in his hand. It was a huge weapon, barrel-shaped, thicker than the arm that was holding it. From what Dragon understood, it worked via firing off a wave of force designed to disrupt motor impulses. Total loss of bodily control. Why didn't Dragon just explain it to him? Like, hey, do you see how there's no data here anymore? And how there's a giant ship in the sky and there's all that Nendon gas? Shaking my Dragon. Basically, if you got caught in it, your arrest wasn't going to be big on dignity. He was pretty sure Musashi could take a shot from that, unlike when Dragon had shot him in the back. He knew that this attack was potentially coming. He could brace himself for it. Dragon, though, he'd barely been able to block a single plasma shot. He wasn't exactly confident in his ability to resist this. Running for it was risky. Even if he managed to get past Deer and head down the hallway, there'd be nothing stopping that. Why doesn't he just use his Gemini cannon on it? Or is it like a beam?
It's like a wave rather than a single projectile.
There'd be nothing stopping the security chief from shooting him in the back, except for Musashi. And even so, he couldn't imagine Musashi taking him attempting to escape well at all. Negotiation was the best bet after all, then. Deer was looking at Musashi, brow furrowed, still trying to process the garbled nonsense the special officer had turned Dragon's explanation into. His hand was still in the cannon, ready to lift up and fire at a moment's notice. Dragon would have to be careful not to provoke him. He quietly cleared his throat, just loud enough to attract Deer's attention. It's the Nendon gas, Deer, he said seriously. The inside of the planet is full of it. You know that. They're going to fly the Dawn House right into the central mine shaft and blow the whole thing up. You know it's possible. Deer snorted. And why would they do that? Dragon faltered, mind scrambling for motivation. He couldn't leave too much of a gap between responses here. He had to keep Deer on the hook. Gears hurriedly clicked together. The whole thing's more trouble than it's worth now. The citizen, Musashi, the UAP central government was going to find out what was happening here soon enough. This is just getting rid of the evidence. Another thought occurred. I assume thought, not though. Besides, I'd bet this planet is full of other resources too, right? Minerals, ores, they can switch over to collecting that stuff as part of the cleanup operation. It's just another kind of racket. Deer took a deep breath, looking down at the cannon in his hand. There was doubt in his eyes, building as he listened to Dragon. He was right on the verge of believing. You know it's possible, Deer, Dragon repeated, prodding him further over the cliff of belief. You know they would. Deer's voice was quiet. He closed his eyes. Musashi shifted ever so slightly into a combat stance, holding his pipe as if it were a farball bat. I thought that said fart ball. Idiot! They were getting through to him! You know, Dragon insisted, taking a step forward. Deer opened his eyes. They were cold and empty, like the windows of a house that had been abandoned for many years. Dragon realized too late. This was a broken man. Free will was poison to his mind. He couldn't disobey any more than he could stop breathing. Deer's voice was flat. Orders are orders. He raised to the cannon. He fired. Well, everybody, if you liked that chapter of Aetheral Space, why don't you smash and like and hit subscribe?
Don't forget to add me to watch later.
Why? They've already watched it.
Just give it another watch later. Show your support. Show your dedication.
How dedicated are you to discovering SCP YouTube?
Is free will that's not watching Aetheral Space Poison to your mind? Let me know in the comments.
Oh, it's cute. Alright, so I'm trying to think of a good world building question. Okay. Here's my question. What do they use? They mentioned there's minerals on the planet. What do you think the different minerals are for? Don't say something boring like starship fuel.
Well, not necessarily fuel, but the actual hulls, things like that. Armor, weaponry. What stuff you would
Alright,
use
I guess
metal
I'll come
for
up
in
with a
our
different
worlds.
world building question then for the audience.
It's just like, what else do you want me to say? They make giant.
No, I wasn't
statues out of
asking
it
you. I was
that
asking
crawl
the
around.
audience. Now I
Oh,
gotta
right, I thought you
figure
were
out
asking
something
me,
else.
sorry.
What the fuck?
Sorry, I thought we were
Alright,
having a conversation. I guess you don't want to talk to me.
No, I don't ever want to talk to you.
Oh.
That's why I started a YouTube channel with you. So I could specifically not talk to you. No, alright, let me think of a different question, audience. Okay, here's a fun one, and it has nothing to do with the episode, but Tanhony put me on the spot here. Let's say there's an alcoholic beverage in Aetheral Space. Design it. What's the alcohol content? What's it taste like? What's it called? Design an
give me a
Aetheral
fun
Space...
name.
Yeah. And who knows if it's good enough, maybe Tan will use it. Probably not, but maybe.
I very well might.
Yeah. I call this one Talden Fire. It was forged by miners who were depressed and down on their luck, so they took space juice and fermented it
we're
long
even
enough.
the match skipper Shale mocked, taking a sip of Talden Fire.
Alright, so thank you guys for watching and listening and reading and leaving reviews on Royal Road. We know which one of you guys do those, and those guys are our favorites. So just so you know, if you want to be a favorite, better
If
leave
you
a
hit
review.
follow on Royal Road, I'll be your friend. No. Yes.
If you hit follow on Royal Road, you get one, in parentheses, one extra Christmas present from Santa.
If you don't, well,
So,
because
I mean, I guess you like coal.
yeah. Well, thank you
All right, bye.
for listening and reading, everyone. Bye.